You are so camera friendly. Look at you, man. Look at you. All right, welcome back to another episode of Staff Inspection, the show where the people of Hoonigan build their own cars and talk about them. Last episode, you saw me and Brett Collins from Collins Garage throw in the 1J CD09 combo. This week, not so much of a straightforward agenda. I have a ton of parts and a lot to get done, so I'm just gonna start getting cracking. We got a little bit of everyone here this week. Got Scotto, working on some car cane rehab stuff. We got Hert, who not honestly sure what he's doing, but got a boatload of really dope parts to install today. I'm gonna bolt on as many things as I can, starting with exhaust manifold and turbo. This really rad intake manifold I got from Plazmaman, 1JZ billet intake manifold. It's even got some trumpets on the inside. Really dope throttle body, billet fuel rail. Mounted up some Deatschwerks 1200cc injectors. I thought we were gonna be a little bit bigger than I had wanted, but the guys over there reassured me that you could run them as low as 5% duty cycle. This thing can idle fine, and then I have room to do E85, so I can make some more power if I'd like to. Super pumped on this thing, future Fab manifold. This thing is super nice too. The welds on this thing are beautiful. Even the collector looks friggin' insane. So for now, just going to swap out the gaskets, bolt up the manifold, and then clock the center section of the turbo and make some lines. All right, so we got the manifold bolted up. Generally, I would usually bolt the turbine housing up to the manifold first because sometimes the T3 flanges are super tough to get to the bolts, but since this is V-Band, it makes life a lot easier, so it actually just kind of pops on there. Next thing we're gonna do is clock the center cartridge, because these generally don't come clocked from the factory. You know, this one's actually set up way off, so I gotta clock the compressor housing, because that's not gonna work. That's kind of the orientation we want this for. The oil feed on top, your water passages on the sides, and then your oil drain on the bottom. And, you know, just so you guys know, no one's done this before, the high pressure side, the -4, the feed is high pressure. The return is just gravity fed. So the goal is to try to get it as close to vertical as possible. So it could be on a little bit of an angle, but try to avoid using like 90-degree fittings and such there. You know, at most you want to just have a 45, whether it's to like get it away from the engine or the turbo manifold or something. Super easy. We're gonna loosen these hex bolts here and the ones on the turbine side. We're gonna clock this 180, point it towards the strut tower, and then flip the center section back to where it is. All right, so I got everything mounted up, got the manifold, and if I didn't cover this already, this is a Garret GTX3076 Gen II. So it's got the billet wheel, dual ball bearing, V-Band hot side, and then Turbo Smart 45 mil gate. So that's also V-Band. Man, putting all this stuff together is so easy with all the V-Bands. I didn't make my oil feeder or turn line yet. I did put the fittings in down there. And my oil restrictor hasn't come in. Because if a lot of people, if you don't know, big reason why you can blow out your turbos if you're not running a restrictor. If you just run a standard -4, you're gonna put too much oil into the turbo. I'll just make those lines later. Should be simple enough. For now, I'm done on the hot side. So yeah, I'm gonna move on to the intake side. Comment below if you have a messier work area to work in. So before I get to putting the intake manifold on, I actually have a couple small parts that I'm super excited about. I got the Chase Bay's tucked radiator, the dual pass, and while I was on their website, I saw they had a lot of really cool stuff to make the engine bay look really dope. One of the things I'm pumped about is this brake booster delete. It really cleans up the brake master cylinder area. It used to look like this, just this big gross brake booster setup, and now it's just gonna be this. For all you guys wondering what it's like to drive a car with manual brakes without a booster, check out their website. They have a really good explanation on the difference, and if you valve the master cylinder correctly, it should feel perfect, just like you have a booster, except for it's more consistent because with vacuum, it kind of changes. If you do any sort of left foot braking, it definitely messes with the brake pedal. I'm stoked because it's gonna look way cleaner. All these little odds and ends to clean it up are gonna really help it look rad in the end. So the stock intake manifold uses these way long lower studs. They don't exactly work. For any of you guys that haven't pulled studs before, here's a quick little tip. Use two nuts and you just screw them on, one in front of the other, about halfway. And then you tighten them together and then pull back the stud out. It's pretty painless, but super simple. Pretty sure most people know this, but if you don't, it's a pretty helpful tip. All right, well, I still have a lot to do. The oil filter housing didn't exactly clock how I thought it would. It looks like I have to notch out this hole and enlarge that a bit, otherwise it sits too far offset. So I'm not gonna have time to do that tonight, but I just wanted to test fit the intake manifold because this is super motivating to finish. This thing looks so dope now, so I'm super excited. But I gotta pull it back off because it looks like this bracket, I guess, that used to go to the air conditioner, or the air conditioning, the AC pump, is hitting the intake manifold, and I gotta reclock that oil filter housing. I'm not gonna do it tonight, and I really just wanted to be motivated to come back. And looking at this thing right now, I'm friggin' pumped. It looks super sick. So tomorrow I'm gonna come back, put the radiator in, get this intake manifold situation sorted. So, be back tomorrow. All right, back at the shop. It's about 1,000,000 degrees again. For now, I'm gonna mount up the radiator, get that set up so that I can start planning out radiator hoses. And for that, I got this really rad Chase Bays Rad. Dad jokes. This thing's super cool. It's a tucked radiator and it's a dual pass. So it has the inlet and outlet on the same side. And what that means is actually the water goes through the radiator twice instead of just once. So it should cool really well. It's super thick. And it's got this really dope inline filler neck that sits, you know, your bleed off rad cap is up top, so it'll be higher than the outlet of the engine, so help with bleeding any bubbles that are in the system. Has this really great fan shroud. I think this thing should actually not have any cooling issues, which is great. I've heard a lot of horror stories about the 1JZ.
Oh my God! Oh, it's on fire! It's on fire! It's on fire!
But I'm gonna try my best to combat that by using the best coolers and run some good fans. So I'm gonna start bolting this thing up and just wanna kind of make sure it gets seated in place and see if there's anything else I need. And then I'm gonna hardline all my coolant pipes, so I have to start figuring that stuff out as well. So I'm gonna get this thing set up. So I got the radiator in place, but I trimmed out the subframe here and here, so it fits up real nice. And then you just have to drill some holes to line up with those tabs, and be ready to rock. You can see here how the filler neck works. So it's actually higher than the engine, but I'm gonna cut this down. It's gonna come straight out of here into the filler neck, so it will be lower. And then the lower ones actually looks pretty simple. Just gonna be a 90 hose off and down. If you don't cut or tube the front of your radiator support, usually like you can't actually fit a good fan in there. I mean, even with these big old chunkers on there, we'll still have room to fit these guys in there. This thing's huge, and it would still actually clear all the accessories. So I got the bracket, drilled a hole for the radiator support bracket, and then in the radiator support. So now all we have to do is measure this gap from here to here and make a small pipe or spacer. This way when it tightens down, it's not just bending this tab, because if you're just throwing a nut on the end of this, it's actually just gonna bend the tab in. I'd rather make it so there's a spacer from here to here and you could tighten it, you know, down properly and close up that gap. So I'm gonna measure up length, see how long those are, cut these, paint this so it doesn't look disgusting, and then radiator's all mounted. So then from there, I just gotta start cutting that filler neck off and get that thing situated so it's lower than the radiator outlet. Got the radiator mounted up, made those little white spacers right there. Just threw a coat of little white paint on them. Blends in pretty nice with the bay. Fits great, really nice up in there. Still have a ton of clearance. And this is with my fan support bracket, so it's not even up as far as it could go. Looks really nice, so I'm excited to plumb this thing up. I'm gonna install the Chase Bays brake master cylinder delete, and then I'm gonna make up a list for what I need so I could get this whole cooling, oil cooling situation figured out. All right, so I am done for today. Wrapping up this episode. Finished up, put the Chase Bays brake booster delete in, as well as their clutch master. So this stuff is super nice. It's really tidy now, like super clean. I'm stoked to have ditched that big booster. So for next time, gonna make a list right now so I can delete all the water pipes that I don't need, remount the oil filter housing, mount an oil cooler, power steering cooler, the oil feed and return line for the turbo, probably run the fuel lines from the back all the way forward to the new fuel rail. Yeah, mount up the intercooler and the oil cooler, power steering cooler. Pretty much start getting all the lines ran and doing all that. The plumbing, get someone to cut and weld this upper water neck. Gonna try to get the car prepped, get ready to go to MagnaFlow for an exhaust, and then go to Rywire to get this thing wired up. Like now I'm way more stoked because just looking at this thing is super rad. Engine bay is gonna look so good. So I am beat. It is way too hot to be doing this stuff. So hopefully next episode I won't be sweating so much. That's a wrap. Cut to this clip when in like 3 months when I'm putting the dash back in and want to kill myself.